Resident Evil is a beloved horror franchise that I've mentioned a few times on the channel now. We've discussed some knockoff Resident Evil games that are honestly just hilarious.
Misato, I'm going to take a look up ahead. You stay here.
I'm scared to be alone, Keith.
You've got to stay here.
But we're not talking about a knockoff today. We're talking about an actual Resident Evil game. Resident Evil Survivor has been called the worst Resident Evil game. And let me tell you, it feels like one of those bad, cheesy, wannabe games.
No, this is me. I am Vincent. It was all my fault.
It's hard to believe that it's an actual Resident Evil game. So it's been well established on this channel that I love bad horror games, okay? They are peak comedy to me. So when I found out there was a bad Resident Evil game, I was all in. And yes, I know, some people think that some of the main Resi games are bad, but like, no, guys, this game is like bad. So enough of the intro, let me tell you guys all about the worst Resi game, Resident Evil Survivor. But first, the disclaimer! This video is not a serious review, but rather a comedic retelling of the plot because I find it funny. In other words, please don't get mad at me for not really discussing gameplay very much or critiquing the story. We're just here to have a little bit of fun. Alright, now let's get into the game. Resident Evil Survivor is a spin-off game, so it's not part of the main franchise. A lot of people don't even know it exists. I mean, I didn't until one of you guys suggested it to me. Now, as I mentioned in the disclaimer earlier, I do mostly focus on the story in these videos, but I do have to talk a little bit about the gameplay in this one. Like most survival horror games, you'll find items and use them to progress through the areas. But the thing about Resident Evil Survivor is that you'll pick up an item and then immediately use it. You found a key. The door is right there. Here's some film. The projector is right next to you. Here's some rope. You need to use it in the very next room. You never have to wonder what you're supposed to do with the items. You just use them right away. There is no puzzle. Also, enemies go down pretty easily, and item management is practically non-existent. You'd never really run out of stuff. With gameplay so simple, it's no wonder that this game is only an hour and 30 minutes long. Yep, you heard me right. It only takes an hour and a half to finish this game. That's crazy short. So of course that means that the story is going to be super rushed too. Speaking of which, let's move on to the main event of this video, the plot. Now, there are 3 doors you can take at the start of the game that will lead you to different areas and give you different cutscenes, but most of the story is still the same and the ending doesn't change, so we're just gonna stick with the way I experienced it first. Like seriously, the other routes don't have much effect on the story at all. So the game begins with a little summary of what happened in Resident Evil 2 and 3. If you're unfamiliar with the franchise, here's the super short version. A virus broke out in a place called Raccoon City, and it turned everyone into zombies. In order to stop the outbreak, they blew the city up. The end. The game tells us that another outbreak of the virus happened, and we're about to experience it. This is when we get the opening cutscene. Now, I know that this man is falling to his demise, so he's definitely screaming in fear. But every time I watch this scene, to me, it sounds like he's going, yeah! Yeah! He's just so happy to be falling from a crashing helicopter. Next, our protagonist emerges from the wreckage. I can't tell you how many times I've watched this to try and figure out what's going on here. It's like he falls out and lands on his back, but then for some reason he flips over and lands on his face? What kind of a fall is this? I'm so confused. Anyway, this is our main character, a man who has forgotten his identity thanks to the crash. He begins to look around and discovers the body of our happy skydiver from before. He has a tag on him with the name Ark Thompson. As he's staring at the body, a zombie comes up behind him, and he is barely fazed by it.
What?
Yeah, so the main character pretty much never reacts to what is going on. It turns out that the most unfazed and fearless Resident Evil protagonist was never Ethan Winters. It was this guy. So he begins to explore the town and finds a document that explains the plot of the first 3 games in detail. Look, the game only takes an hour and a half to complete, okay? We don't have time to be drawing out the mystery for him. He just needs to learn everything right off the bat. A phone starts to ring and he answers it. On the other end is someone calling him Vincent and saying that all of this is his fault. Then some dude starts shooting at him, telling him to die. Later, he finds a diary that explains who Vincent is. He's a member of the Umbrella Corporation. For you non-Resident Evil fans, Umbrella is basically this big evil corporation that makes these viruses and scary monsters. They're bad news. Anyway, Vincent arrived in town and started kidnapping and experimenting on children. So he's a pretty bad guy. The diary owner also says that he took a picture of Vincent, and oh hey, there's a picture of our protagonist. So yeah, after this, he's pretty certain that he's Vincent. I mean, never mind the fact that there are a billion other photos in this room and the diary could be referring to one of those instead of this one. He is Vincent. Our main character is devastated to learn that he's such a horrible person, but he must press forward, making his way through the town and fighting giant alligators. Vincent makes it to a room that's full of cells and finds another diary. There's a lot of reading in this game, if you couldn't tell. So this diary is from a young boy. He explains that he and a bunch of other children from around the world were kidnapped and brought here. This is when we learn that the town we're in is entirely controlled by Umbrella, and everyone who lives there are employees and their families. Or, at least that was the case before the whole zombie outbreak thing, and now everyone's dead. The kids were kept in cells, but sometimes the Umbrella employees would take them to arcades or nightclubs to relieve stress. Okay, this is so weird to me. They kidnap these kids, experiment on them, and lock them in cells. But at the same time, they're like, hey, they need to relieve stress sometimes. Let's take them to the nightclub. Woohoo! Turn up, kids. Let's get lit. Who cares about the fact that you are a prisoner? Anyway, eventually some of the kids go missing and never come back. And the rumor is that they get part of their brains cut out in experiments. The remaining kids all decide to team up and escape the place. Later on, we find several other diaries that explain what happened. Yep, pretty much the entire story is told through diaries. Learning things through letters and diaries happens a lot in the Resident Evil franchise, but it's to an extreme in this game. You're going to miss 95% of the story if you don't read these. So basically what happened is when the kids tried to escape, Vincent killed them all and then covered it up as a mass unaliving. But then a spy arrived in the city and was onto him. So to cover the murder up, he infected the entire town with the virus, turning them into zombies. The only way to cover up a murder is by turning the entire town into hideous monsters. There were clearly no other options. Vincent continues on and, oh no, a tyrant! Tyrants are these very scary bioweapons that are nearly impossible to kill. You spend the entirety of Resident Evil 2 running from one, and it only dies after a crazy boss fight in the end. So this is a really bad situation for Vincent to be in. Okay, never mind. There are a lot of tyrants in this game, and they all go down in 2 seconds. Why are they so weak in this game? Speaking of tyrants, remember how the kids were getting parts of their brains cut out? Yeah, it was to make the tyrants, so that's pretty messed up. But hey, on a lighter note, let's listen to some of the worst voice acting in the game.
Vincent, please, listen to your mother. I want you to leave Umbrella. I want you to stop performing those terrible crimes and just come back home.
Vincent finds this little girl named Lily. Her brother, Lot, shows up and is all, get away from her! Vincent insists that he won't hurt the kids, but he says this while menacingly walking towards them, so naturally they run away. And he chases after them, which scares them even more. He eventually catches up to Lily, who's just fine with him now for some reason. She begs Vincent to save Lot. He went to the factory where the Umbrella employees worked because he thinks he'll be able to find a way out of the town there. How did Lot get to the factory so quickly? Vincent chased them down to here. How did he get away? Anyway, Lily is sure he'll die there because the factory is full of monsters. Vincent vows to save him. He may have been a horrible man 1 hour ago, but he's going to do the right thing now. Inside the factory, Vincent finds a room full of tyrants, and we're given another beautiful cutscene. No, that was not the game or this video glitching. The scene actually looks like that. They build this tyrant fight up, but it dies just as quickly as the others. He finds Lot and saves him from a monster, so Lot is cool with him now. This is when Lot reveals something huge.
You? What do you mean? You're the detective. Your name is Ark Thompson.
That's right. We haven't been playing as Vincent at all. We're actually Ark Thompson. He's a detective that came to this town and pretended to be Vincent in hopes to get more information on him.
That's right. At the request of my friend, Leon S. Kennedy, I came here to investigate.
Yeah, so he's friends with Leon, one of the main characters in the series. I do find it funny that he referred to him by his full name, though. That's just such an unnatural way to refer to someone.
My friend, Leon S. Kennedy.
Anyway, Lot is one of the few people in town that have seen the real Vincent, so he told him about Ark. And oh hey, it turns out that Vincent is actually the skydiver from the start. So this all resulted in Vincent spreading the virus to eliminate the spy that was onto him, so Lot feels super guilty now. After the virus is spread, Ark and Vincent finally meet and have an intense conversation.
Tell me the truth. You are a spy, aren't you?
Ark tried to flee in the helicopter, which led to the scene from the start. An announcement starts playing over some speakers that the island is going to self-destruct, so they have to get out of there fast. On their way out, they run into Vincent, but that doesn't last long because he's killed by the only scary thing in this game, a monster named Hypnos. Ark takes it out pretty quickly though. They make it outside and meet up with Lily. They think they'll be able to escape now, but Hypnos is back.
It's still alive.
Okay, yeah, the execution of the scenes he's in is pretty goofy and very low quality, but I think he's kind of scary. Ark defeats the monster, and the three rush inside a helicopter so they can escape the city before it explodes. Ark, listen to me. You need to do a better job of piloting this helicopter than you did at the start of the game. There are children involved now. You can't be crashing again. Hypnos is still not dead and grabs onto the helicopter, but Ark shoots some missiles at it and it's gone for good now. And luckily, shooting the missiles does not cause Ark to lose control. He doesn't crash again. The game ends with Ark, Lot, and Lily flying away and hopefully living happily ever after. And that is Resident Evil Survivor. So, is this the worst Resident Evil game? I mean, I would say so. The gameplay is lackluster, the voice acting is arguably worse than the original Resident Evil.
Come back home.
The cutscenes are insane. The story isn't told well, and it doesn't even take 2 hours to finish. That being said, the game does have potential. The whole story of kids being kidnapped and having parts of their brains removed to make tyrants is super dark and scary. Resident Evil still wins for having a better, more cohesive story than the knockoffs like Countdown Vampires. The problem with it is that it's told entirely through really long diary entries. Again, all the Resident Evil games have a lot of notes to read, but this took it to another level. You're missing an entire chunk of the story if you don't read them. Ark thinking he's Vincent was a cool idea, and would have been a lot more interesting if the game was longer and you could play with the idea more. You know, maybe learn about how awful Vincent is in the first part of the game, have him think that he's Vincent in the middle, and then at the very end you reveal the truth. It would have a better impact that way than rather immediately being like, he's Vincent and he's bad. It also would have been an interesting idea if he really was Vincent, and now he wants to be a good guy and make up for what he did. So yeah, overall, it's not a bad story, it's just very rushed and executed horribly. But when you compare it to the rest of the Resident Evil games, I mean, this one's definitely at the bottom. What are your thoughts on Resident Evil Survivor, and how do you think they could have made it better? Let me know in the comments below. And yeah, that's gonna do it for me today, guys. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe to see more content from me. I try to post these types of videos every other Friday, and I've got Let's Plays going the rest of the time. Feel free to leave suggestions if there are other games, movies, anime, TV shows that you want me to talk about. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!